President Vladimir Putin, President of the Russian Federation, reveals the true reasons why he refuses to accept a new agreement under Western auspices. He clearly outlines Russia's position regarding the agreements proposed by the West. Why is Russia making demands and ensuring that it does not accept the agreements proposed so far, particularly the final agreement on the Ukrainian issue? Ladies and gentlemen, hello to everyone. You are on the Awakening of Consciousness platform, so thank you for sharing the video conference as much as possible. Vladimir Putin gave an interview in which he touched on several points. We rather expected him to talk about the May 9th parade, but he hardly addressed this aspect. In any case, according to the initial elements of the interview that we have, Vladimir Putin criticized the attitude of the Westerners. And as we mentioned in one of our previous video conferences, it seems that Russia, yes, Putin's Russia, Putin keeps things in his heart. He doesn't joke about it. When you betray him once, it's over. He clashes with you in his heart. He focuses on you. He knows that from now on you are not reliable. This is what emerges from Vladimir Putin's interview regarding the Westerners. In reality, Vladimir Putin says this. He says the West says one thing and does the opposite. He says when the West speaks today, what the West is going to say, you will like it. Very well. But in practice, the West will do exactly the opposite of what the West says. That means Vladimir Putin knows very, very well. He knows the Westerners very, very well. And that's why he doesn't want to be fooled by this matter of agreement, ceasefire, etc., etc. He's not ready. Not at all. So he says, the West says one thing and does the opposite. It's clear. Since the early 2000s, this is what he first asserts. So, since the year 2000, we are already 25 years later, Russia observes that the West says one thing and does exactly the opposite of what the West has said. He explained that Russia had accepted the Minsk agreements because it wanted to believe in them. So, Russia had placed its hopes on the Minsk agreements. And the Minsk agreements, we know, right, this agreement that obviously allowed for peace and stability in Europe, particularly concerning the Ukrainian issue. But the Minsk agreements were violated by the Westerners themselves. So since then, Russia no longer wants to trust. And so it's a strong message being sent to Donald Trump, guy who is very controversial, who wants at all costs for an agreement to be reached between Russia and Ukraine. However, Russia is now very clever, it observes. Russia wants to solve the problems in its own way. So, Vladimir Putin says this. Russia is essentially, alone against the collective West. So he takes the opportunity to strike down the West, since the entire West has risen against Russia. But he hasn't managed to do so for how many years? And we must tell the truth. Some are mistaken in saying that no, Russia should finish with this Ukrainian affair in 2 weeks or in 1 year, while it's the entire West that has risen against Russia. If it's not today, where Donald Trump tries to change his position a bit, but even that, it's not clear. It's ambiguous. He has a convoluted position. There you have it, a very ambiguous position. But otherwise, we have seen the Biden administration relentlessly targeting Russia. So, Vladimir Putin continues. He says, Russia has not essentially prepared for the special military operation as others claim. That is to say, the special military operation, the action currently underway in Ukraine. He says that Russia has not specifically prepared for this. He says this in essence. He says, we sincerely tried to resolve the Donbas issue by peaceful means, but it turned out that the other side thought and acted differently. This is what he stated in the documentary broadcast on TV during the interview. He also indicated that in 2014, Russia was forced to make the decision to support the populations of Crimea and Sevastopol. So, Russia was never prepared, but Russia is being compelled. So, what is all this for? It's to make the world understand what the West is. But these are the speeches that the world is not understanding. Notably, we have many observers who say that Russia talks a lot. Instead of talking too much, action is needed. But Vladimir Putin tries to ease everything they say that Russia talks a lot. Russia should take action. Putin says that Russia did not need to use nuclear weapons during the special military operation. And he thinks it will not be necessary. Well, already, this contradicts what Dmitry Medvedev said yesterday, since they promised Ukraine that if Ukraine attempted to do anything during the May 9th parade, Ukraine would disappear on May 10th, or because they would raise Ukraine. And to raise Ukraine, it would normally be with nuclear weapons. So that is to say, Putin, he always plays the one who proceeds with appeasement. And him, it's this. He says, it was not necessary before. There you go. There, he clarifies, He says, it was not necessary before to use nuclear weapons, and I hope it will not be the case. So there, I correct myself. He is not making a contradiction. You have to read between the lines. He says, it was not necessary before, so before. And for the moment he hopes it will not be the case. It will not be necessary. But this implies that it could be necessary. In this case, he aligns with Dmitry Medvedev. It could be necessary if Ukraine pushes Russia. Ukraine and NATO are pushing Russia to an unforgivable, intolerable, and ruthless threshold. So, here's what he said during the interview he gave to Russian journalist Pavel Jarubin. So, Putin emphasized that Moscow kept its cool during the special operation, despite attempts to provoke Russia and push it into making mistakes. You see, Putin considers the use of nuclear weapons to be a mistake. So, once again, I was right to say that Putin does not want to use nuclear weapons, even if Ukraine does something on May 9th. It very much looks like that. And we know Dmitry Medvedev, the head of national security, is much more agitated than Vladimir Putin. However, Putin is trying to play the wise man. And so, ladies and gentlemen, that was the international news headline. Thank you for sharing it as much as possible. I will be back shortly with more news. This was the voice of your one and only samurai.